Anthropic says its newest AI model named Claude Mythos Preview is too powerful and dangerous to be released to public.
Most people who use software every day don't think about bugs.
But then every so often, there are vulnerabilities that have real severe impacts.
Like one single bug that works its way into shared software that many different products or websites use. So one issue just gets magnified out around the world.
So historically, finding and patching vulnerabilities has been a slow, time-consuming...
What if the biggest AI story of the year is not really about a model? What if it is about a company that suddenly needed the world to see it differently?
Begin the hour with retaliation. Anthropic says no to the Pentagon, and the president responds by blacklisting the company with the federal government. That's just in. It's a big story.
Because when most people hear the Anthropic Mythos story, they hear the same dramatic pattern. A powerful AI model, invite-only access, government briefings, warnings about cybersecurity, and a system so capable that it supposedly cannot be released to the public. That is the version being sold. But I do not think that is where this story actually begins. I think it starts earlier, with contracts, with Washington, with leverage, with power, and with a company that built real momentum in some very important circles.
President Trump is ordering all federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's AI technology. The San Francisco company and the Pentagon remain at odds over guardrails designed to put limits on the military's use of its AI. Our Jolene Kent has been following these developments very closely, and she explains what's at the root of this standoff.
The standoff between Anthropic, one of the world's most powerful AI companies based here in San Francisco, and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. is still very much at a standstill. Now, President Trump today weighing in, ordering all government agencies to stop using Anthropic's products.
Today, I want to focus on the part a lot of people are skipping. Not just what Mythos is, but why this story is being told this way, and why I do not think Anthropic Mythos is the AI revolution people think it is. To understand Mythos, you have to understand Anthropic's position before Mythos. Anthropic was not some fringe lab trying to get attention. It was already one of the most strategically important AI companies in the United States. And not just because of consumer AI, and not just because of benchmarks. It mattered because it had become relevant to government, defense, and national security. That matters, because once a company enters that arena, it is no longer just building products. It is building leverage, influence, dependence, and political relevance. And from what has been reported, Anthropic had real momentum in that world. The company had signed a major Pentagon contract and had become entangled in some of the most sensitive conversations happening around advanced AI. That is a very different position from just being another AI startup. That is the position of a company trying to become indispensable. And then the relationship fractured. This is where the story gets much more interesting. Because according to Reuters, Anthropic's relationship with the Pentagon broke down after a dispute over how its models could be used. The conflict centered on guardrails around things like autonomous weapons and mass surveillance. Anthropic refused to loosen those restrictions. The Pentagon cut ties. And Anthropic warned internally and legally that the fallout could hit hard. That is not a small event. That is the kind of event that changes strategy. Because once a company loses that kind of federal positioning, it does not just lose money. It risks losing momentum, losing status, and losing the impression that it is the lab shaping the future of state-grade AI. And in this industry, perception matters almost as much as product. If investors, agencies, and corporate partners think your rival is becoming the default national champion, you cannot just quietly move on. You need to reassert your value, and you need to do it fast. That is the context I think people are ignoring when they talk about Mythos like it dropped from the sky in a vacuum. It did not. It arrived after pressure, after conflict, and after a serious break with one of the most powerful customers in the world. Then, on April 7th, Anthropic announced Project Glasswing and introduced Claude Mythos Preview. And look at how the rollout was framed. Not as a normal release, not as a public launch, and not even as a broad product update. Instead, it was presented as something exceptional. something gated, and something powerful enough to require special handling. Anthropic described Mythos Preview as its most capable model yet for coding and agentic tasks, claimed it had already identified thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across critical infrastructure, and said it would only be available as a gated research preview. It also said it did not plan to make Mythos Preview generally available, at least for now. That framing matters, because the moment you tell the market a model is too sensitive for broad release, you create a very specific psychological effect. People fill in the blanks themselves. Scarcity becomes proof of power. Restriction becomes proof of danger. Limited access becomes proof of superiority. And suddenly, the thing very few people can actually use starts sounding bigger than the things millions of people can. That is not accidental. That is one of the most powerful forms of positioning in tech. Then the story got even bigger. Reuters reported that Anthropic was still in discussions with the Trump administration about Mythos, even after the Pentagon dispute. Reuters also reported that Treasury and State sought briefings or access, and that government officials were exploring ways to make a controlled version available to major agencies. Think about what that does to the story. Now, Mythos is not just a model. It is a Washington model, a national security model, a geopolitical model, and a "we cannot afford to fall behind China" model. That changes the emotional tone completely, because once a product gets wrapped in that kind of language, criticizing the hype becomes harder. Now the company is not just launching tech. It is implying strategic necessity. It is placing itself inside a much larger conversation about security, power, and state competition. And that is exactly why this rollout is so effective. Because even if you cannot use Mythos, even if you cannot test Mythos, and even if you cannot reproduce what Mythos supposedly does, you are still being trained to see Mythos as historically important. That is narrative dominance. Now, to be fair, Anthropic is not saying nothing. It has put out official claims, benchmark comparisons, pricing information for participants, and a public page saying that Project Glasswing partners can access Mythos Preview through the Claude API, Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud Vertex AI, and Microsoft Foundry. Anthropic also says it committed $100 million in usage credits for the research preview. So this is not vaporware. That is not my argument. My argument is different. The question is not whether Mythos exists. The question is what the public is being led to believe about it. Because there is a huge difference between saying, a highly capable model exists in a restricted deployment for selected partners, and saying, a revolutionary AI has arrived and changed reality for everyone. Those are not the same claim. And most people online are reacting to the second one, not the first. That is where the hype begins. Here is the least glamorous part of this entire conversation. AI is not magic. It is infrastructure. If a model is truly elite at deeply analyzing code, searching for vulnerabilities, chaining tasks, operating agentically, and doing it across massive software surfaces, then running that model is not cheap.
Beyond the software, there is a physical reality to these models. Even if a bad actor acquired the weights for Mythos today, they would likely find it impossible to run. The key value cache tracks a model's working memory. To read a massive codebase, this cache expands rapidly, dwarfing the model's actual weights. A standard graphics card lacks the RAM for this. Mythos requires multi-node GPU clusters just to prevent crashing under its own context. Those server clusters are incredibly expensive. A single autonomous session costs thousands of dollars per task, blocking most unauthorized users. The hardware required to be dangerous is so scarce and expensive that it acts as a physical wall, neutralizing the threat of a widespread autonomous hacker before it can even start. Because of these costs, the public doesn't get Mythos. Instead, the model available for general use is Claude Opus 4.7. Anthropic has admitted that during training, they explicitly differentially reduced the cybersecurity capabilities of Opus 4.7. They intentionally weakened the consumer version of the technology. The company enforces strict tier-based API spend limits. For most users, the budget hits a vertical wall at around $200 a month. This budget exhaustion stops autonomous tasks cold, making the long-running loops required for deep exploitation mechanically impossible. The public version of this technology is a managed, subsidized sandbox, ensuring that the most potent capabilities remain behind the institutional gate. Claude Mythos is a highly capable tool, but its danger is contained by a physical hardware wall, an economic pricing wall, and the strict gatekeeping of Project Glasswing. Labeling a model too dangerous for the public serves as a strategic marketing signal. It tells investors that the company has achieved a level of engineering dominance that warrants extreme caution, driving valuation and interest. This narrative also secures enterprise contracts. Tech giants and governments are incentivized to join Project Glasswing to ensure they have the same defensive tools as their peers. Finally, this strategy masks a simpler truth. The industry currently lacks the GPU capacity to offer a model with these memory requirements to the general public anyway.
So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. In AI, the biggest lie is often not the model. It is the implication. The implication that because a company can demonstrate something under controlled conditions, the world has fundamentally changed for everyone. That is the trick. Capability gets confused with availability. Scarcity gets confused with superiority. Political interest gets confused with proof. And highly managed rollouts get mistaken for revolutions. Anthropic Mythos may be powerful. It may be important. It may even matter a lot in cybersecurity. But the version being imagined online, the unlimited, world-breaking, public-facing AI leap, is not the reality in front of us. What we are actually looking at is a highly strategic rollout at the intersection of compute limits, cyber risk, government pressure, and corporate positioning. And once you see that, Mythos looks less like magic and much more like modern AI business. If you want more videos that go past the headline and into the incentives behind the story, subscribe to Byte Forward.